Well, I guess I shouldn't have told you to tell all your friends, 'cause they've been waiting a while, but with Merlin off gallivanting around in his slippers, Sora decides to quickly check on Pooh Bear, because he absolutely can't wait to see his most disabled friend again. With the book spread eagle in Donald's feathery fingers, Sora lands right near the crotch and looks around as Pooh's house pops up on the page like a stiffy. Sora walks up to Pooh's house and sees him sitting on a log out front, but before we can say hi, we first have to loot the backyard for valuables. Pooh Bear is so dumb he has a map of his own house kept in a large chest in case he gets lost, and Sora is so dumb he feels the need to acquire it. I'd ask what happened to Mr. Sanders, the previous owner of this house, but if the way he wrote his own name above the door is any indication, he probably chased a butterfly off a cliff. We finally say hello to Pooh, who promptly invites us to work out with him, as if that's a fun activity to just spring on somebody. Sora is a twink. He doesn't need to do stoutness exercises, and he should be offended at the very notion. But as Pooh gets up to exercise in absolute futility, he suddenly freezes in time. Sora goes over to pet him, but is immediately knocked out of the book with a gust of wind like he touched an invisible Aeroga spell. Back in Hollow Bastion, the door to the house is open and fighting can be heard outside, with Donald yelling, "Sora, hurry up!" Sora goes out to help his comrades but leaves the book behind, but it's okay because the Heartless are bringing it out for him. We attack them to retrieve our precious page-ridden friends and decide that Sora should travel back up in there to make sure Pooh is okay. I don't know why Donald and Goofy never wanted any part of this. Like, I get it in hindsight because it's like volunteering in a special needs class and only Sora is close enough intellectually to be able to relate to these critters, but you would have thought back in KH1 that Donald and Goofy would have the curiosity to at least go in the book once and see what's up. Maybe they're just too old for that shit. I could see Donald getting pissed off and just throwing Eeyore back in the river. Anyway, we go back to revisit Pooh, but it turns out he has completely lost his memory of not only Sora, but all his other friends as well. So he ignores us and keeps trying to achieve his beach body in time for summer, though at this point he doesn't know anybody, so I'm not sure who it's for. We go back and talk to Merlin, who deduces that it must have to do with the torn pages the Heartless have now stolen again. Pooh's heart must be pure fucking light for it to radiate out of a children's book and attract Heartless to go after it a second time. Either that or autism is a delicacy. Merlin gives us the ability to summon Chicken Little, but no incentive to do so, so maybe I'll do it once when I first get the game as a child, and then never again after 20 years. It's time to set off on course for a new world, though, or at least a new part of an old world, because we're going to the Olympus Coliseum, in theory. In reality, we land in the Underworld by accident, which is an easy mistake to make. You know how sometimes you'll be following directions to a friend's house, but then you accidentally wind up in hell? We don't get a lot of time to quibble about it, though, because we immediately see Disney Speedstorm's best waifu being attacked by heartless dogs. That's not a colloquialism, I mean they're literally heartless that are also dogs. They also seem to have eaten most of the flesh above her waist because that figure should not be biologically possible. We introduce ourselves, and after revealing that our mutual friend is Hercules, she begins to let her guard down. She says, "Name's Megara. My friends call me Meg." Does she have friends? I think she frontin'. She asks us to talk to Hades because he's been putting Hercules against challenger after challenger for the viewing pleasure of the fans, and he's exhausted. I don't know why anyone would think Hades wasn't doing that on purpose, or that he could be persuaded to suddenly stop doing that, but we make the trek over to his throne room anyway. On the way, we spot a black-cloaked interloper running off in the distance, so we know Organization 13 is here too. After talking about who else to send up against Hercules, Pete inadvertently gives Hades the idea to summon a warrior who's already dead, and Hades knows exactly who to pick because he loves Final Fantasy X. Through the summoning smoke, a red-cloaked figure emerges with a cool head and a bad attitude. He rejects Hades' proposition of fighting Hercules to the death, saying, "This is my story, and you're not part of it." And the camera pans out to reveal that he has a big sword and only one arm, which is one less than two arms, which is one more arm than he has. He tries to fight Hades, but Hades in the Underworld is apparently invincible, so we all try to fight Hades, while still not quite coming to grips with the fact that he's invincible, until the one-armed man grabs one of Sora's two arms with his singular arm and tells him we need to get out of here. From here, Auron can be switched in as a party member. Just remember to go in his abilities and take off auto-limit, because that shit is always annoying when it pops up instead of a reaction command I'm expecting. After successfully escaping Hades, Sora, Donald, and Goofy are flat on the ground, dog-tired, looking up at Auron like, "You're really good. Are you some kind of hero?" And Auron's like, "No, I'm no hero. I'm Auron." And Sora's like, "What?" And Auron's like, "My name even though we already knew that because the party menu spoiled it for us. Back at Hades' lair, Pete's getting a little too big for his britches, going all, "Look, pal, I got Heartless all over the Underworld now. You leave those twerps to me while you focus on Herc the Jerk." And Hades blows up at him like, "This is my Underworld, you fat mongoloid!" Then he calls for Cerberus and sends him, and her after the group. Sora, Donald, Goofy, and Orin approach a locked door that Sora has to unlock with the Keyblade before Cerberus bounds their way in and announces their preferred pronouns. Sora and Orin stay to fight, and we attack none of the heads in particular until they all decide the body is too tired to go on. Everyone escapes through the door while Cerberus is/are momentarily stunned and go to find Meg, who can't convince Hercules to take a day off. In the meantime, Hades asks what I would have thought he'd already known, being a member of the Darkness Roundtable and all, but he asks if Sora's Keyblade can open any lock, to which Pete says yes. Hades then hatches the beginnings of a plan involving reopening the Underworld Coliseum that Zeus had previously locked. Back up at the Olympus Coliseum, the group finally runs into Hercules, who insists on still calling us junior heroes, even though I beat his ass so many times in the KH1 tournaments, I lost count of how many times he asked me if I had given up yet, after doing approximately 0 damage to me. This motherfucker is done in by wooden barrels, and I'm the junior hero? Anyway, we tell him about the problem of the Underworld draining our strength, and he introduces the idea of the Olympus Stone, a stone the other gods carry when they go down to the Underworld that protects them from the curse. We ask rather presumptuously if we can borrow it, and he's like, "Sure," and just walks off to go get it. Alright. In the meantime, he wants us to go talk to Phil for some training, and we have to once again undergo the painful bit of, "Hey champ, how you feeling? I'm gonna talk to you for 30 seconds before I turn around and realize you're not who I thought you were." Whoa, hey Sora, it's you! He asks us if we've earned our true hero wings yet, which we are apparently unsure about, and then he just says, "We don't have what it takes." Bitch, I beat Hercules. Not only did I beat Hercules, I beat Hades. Not only did I beat Hades, I beat the Rock Titan. Not only did I beat the Rock Titan, I beat the Ice Titan. Not only did I beat the Ice Titan, I beat Sephiroth. If I haven't earned my wings, I'll go steal his, so at least I'll have one. Which reminds me, why do we need training to beat Hades? I have very explicitly already done that bullshit. He's not any stronger, and I can guard backwards with one hand now. I'm Gucci. Attacking barrels sure isn't going to do me any good. After the training, Phil takes off, and Hercules comes back saying the Olympus Stone has been stolen by some guy wearing a black cloak. He also asks us if we've seen Meg, at which point Hades shows up and claims that Meg went and got herself lost in the Underworld. But Hercules can't go find her because he's got a match coming up, and the Hydra might start slurping people up if he's not there to slay it mightily. So Sora, Donald, and Goofy agree to go after Meg while Hercules stays behind. At the entrance, we run into Phil, or more like trip over, because he's either lying on his belly or trying to balance on it. He says he got knocked out by a man in black, and that he had left to go find a backup hero in case Hercules couldn't make his match. Sora's like, "You could have just asked," and Phil's like, "You know someone?" It's so annoying, dude. Hercules' introductory match, when you enter the world for the first time, was him beating the Rock Titan. I wonder if Phil knows anyone else who's beaten the Rock Titan. It's the most blindly condescending gag in the world. Like, Phil is an actual moron, and it's not endearing. I'm glad he doesn't speak in the third game. Would be better if the reason was less tragic, but I'm still thankful. Back upstairs, Hercules seemingly defeats the Hydra with like one not very decisive blow to the head with his sword and quickly exits to join the search for Meg. Downstairs, we finally run into that black-cloaked individual who uncloaks himself, or I guess I should say unhoods himself since he didn't like get naked or anything, and calls Sora, "Roxas?" Sora's like, "Excuse me?" And the guy again goes, "Roxas?" Then he pulls out a note and starts reading it. If the subject fails to respond, use aggression to liberate his true disposition. He seems nervously whiny about having to do whatever job he's been assigned, but he pulls out the Olympus Stone and activates it on himself, which cues the group into assuming a combat stance. Little do they know, they're about to fight against a sloppy, wet guitar solo. It turns into a minigame where the now unhooded man is impervious to all attacks, and the only way to claim victory is to defeat 100 of his summoned water forms in 80 seconds. I don't know why he gets to set these rules. His invincibility almost makes sense in the Underworld with him having used the stone, but you fight him again in Hollow Bastion later, and he can still pull off this nonsense with you having no choice but to play accompaniment to it, so I don't know. Plot armor, I guess? It's still easy, though. All you have to do is hit one of the water dudes once to turn it into a note, and then press triangle on it to swing it around and kill like 20 moist, slippery men with each sodden, sopping interaction. After the fight, the unhooded man is clutching his shoulder like we did anything to him, unless he pulled a muscle plucking those silent strings. Honestly, they should have given him his own theme song and had him actually playing it instead of just pantomiming like a pop star. But we get the Olympus Stone, and now it's time to rescue Meg from the clutches of this rock she's trapped in, with a keyhole by her legs that looks so inviting. How could you not just penetrate it with your beam of light? Sora does just that, and it opens a path to where Meg is bound for no reason. Like, she can still run around. They only did her arms, but she couldn't have escaped on her own anyway. I get the feeling Hades is just having a laugh at this one. He appears and thanks Sora and the others for their help, before leaving Pete to deal with them. Pete is a little cheater. Not only does he have an impenetrable force field that he flicks on and off like he's saving the battery, but if you reduce his HP too fast, he'll just stay alive with no bar left until the game decides it's been long enough to transition to the next cutscene, where Hercules enters the fray by throwing some bat-brellas at him. We get Meg out of there, but stay behind to do the same fight against Pete again until he gives up and runs away. Out in the Underworld foyer, Hades shows up again and tells Hercules about all the damage that unfinished Hydra is doing topside. When we get up there, the Colosseum is in shambles, the Hydra is rampaging about, and all the invisible people in the stands are presumably invisibly dead. Oh well, how do you mourn something the developers didn't even program? Just like KH1, every time there's a Colosseum battle, the game pretends people are there watching it in the bleachers with sound effects, even though you can clearly see they are empty. It's like a football game during COVID. Anyway, Hercules is clearly not happy about being responsible for hundreds of fake implied deaths, so he gets real down on himself and loses his godly gold aura. It's up to us to defeat the bloodthirsty Hydra, who probably isn't that thirsty anymore. And since Phil is a part of this boss fight and observing everything that happens, he has no further excuses to not make us true heroes, so I better not hear Junior Hero ever again. We defeat the Hydra by doing what centuries of philosophy have told us not to do, which is cut off its head to reveal more heads, and then cut off those heads to reveal exponentially more heads. But I guess it does eventually run out of heads, so we claim victory in true heroic fashion. Hercules remains downtrodden about being supposedly useless, but Meg says she'll look after him, and we use the Olympus Stone to lock the sky, which is a thing you can say with a straight face when you play this game. We leave the world in peace and pieces.